Hi everyone, welcome to A Catch on Culture, where we take complex global news and break it down in an easy, real way that everyone can understand. Today we are answering a question a lot of people are asking. Why didn't Venezuelan President Maduro just offer oil to the US instead of everything ending up like it has? Let's dig in. The US and Venezuela have been at the center of some of the biggest stories in global politics, involving military operations, diplomatic crises, and yes, oil. President Trump administration recently took action against Venezuela's leader Nicolás Maduro and repeatedly suggested that Venezuela's vast oil resources are part of why the US is focused on the country. So you might wonder, why didn't Maduro just offer to that? Why did Maduro just offer access to that oil, to the US and avoid confrontation? Let's unpack that.
Helicopters reached what President Trump called Maduro's fortress, where U.S. troops were able to seize Maduro and his wife and remove them from the country. In a firefight at the compound, several U.S. soldiers were injured, but all are in stable condition, according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. A helicopter was damaged during the escape, but remained flyable. General Kane said no U.S. troops were killed. Maduro and his wife were taken on the warship USS Iwo Jima to Guantanamo Bay, then flown to New York State, transferred by helicopter to Manhattan, and transported to a detention center in Brooklyn. A White House social media account posted this video of Maduro in New York yesterday. No members of Congress were notified in advance of the operation, and dozens have questioned the constitutionality of it, including some Republicans. And that's the easy stuff to follow. Then at a midday press conference yesterday, President Trump said this.
Second key point also that should be noted is, even with huge reserves, the country now produces much less than it used to, and most of that oil is heavy crude, which is harder and more expensive to refine. That matters to oil companies and government. So offering oil isn't as simple as turning on the taps. You need infrastructure, investors, and legal agreements. Legal agreement, guys. Let's continue to this video.
Judicious Day press conference yesterday, President Trump said this.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious.
It's funny how America is a sovereign nation. Aren't they supposed to be ruling their own people? And let's just keep watching this with an open mind, but the US never does anything for free for anybody. There's no such thing as free lunch.
Transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last.
And he's basically saying we don't want to have someone else get involved, then we have the same situation. So basically they want to control whoever is coming next. So this is basically the US government telling everybody that they can actually be in charge of another country, and it doesn't matter if you are not part of the American, I don't know, political regime. They always implant someone to run a different country. And this has been happening for quite some time. But let's continue to what he's saying.
It's a long period of years. So we are going to run the country.
They're going to run the country
until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
I mean, don't Americans have their own issues back at home? Why do they need to run another country when America already has their own issues? I mean, Americans have been on the streets ever since this regime got in. Like the President Trump's second term started, they've been protesting about literally every single thing. But let's give America time to go around Venezuela's government.
No dates were mentioned there. The president was much more focused on Venezuela's hefty oil supply, referring to it about 25 times during the press conference. Than he was with Maduro.
But he wants to say this is about a dictator. This is about someone that shouldn't be in the seat. This is about someone that is not leading the Venezuelan people in the right direction. Come on, guys, please.
Alleged cocaine trafficking with which he's actually being charged, or the subversion of democracy in Venezuela. Trump claimed Venezuela had stolen oil that belonged to the United States and said he wanted the biggest oil companies in the world to return to Venezuela. But immediately, the administration was peppered with questions about who exactly would be running Venezuela on behalf of the United States and how. President Trump referred to the group behind him, consisting of the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. Despite the U.S. government's claim that Maduro was illegitimately leading the country and that several of his closest officials also participated in the trafficking operation that Maduro allegedly led, President Trump acknowledged he'd be willing to work with Venezuela's Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, who assumed the role of interim president yesterday. That's tricky, too, because in a televised address to the Venezuelan nation, Rodriguez said that Maduro was the country's only president and that the nation would, quote, not be anyone's colony.
There you go. So basically, this person that they wanted to take over also said, well, guess what? We're not going to be anybody's colony. So, I mean, imagine Trump's, I almost said organization. Imagine Trump's administration listening to this and they're like, they can see this, they can see what we're doing, like they're disputing this, it's almost like they're saying you have your independence but we will control your independence, so why not just make a deal? Well, here's a few reasons. Political mistrust. Relationships between the US and Venezuela have been tense for years. Mistrust makes deals hard. Sanctions. US sanctions restricts Venezuelan oil export, so you can't just send oil without clearing major legal hurdles. Who actually controls the oil then? Oil isn't owned by one person. It's state-owned industry with contracts, penalties, and international disputes. Yeah, that's where America comes in. They sanction you if you're not going to play by their rules. They will control your government, and so far they will also have shown that they can actually arrest a person in office in another country and say, we're going to run your country. What?
Joining me now is my friend Mehdi Hassan, longtime journalist and now CEO and editor-in-chief of Zate. I don't even know where to start with you, Mehdi. There's so many things here. I guess I would start with the fact that U.S. presidents often obfuscate about what the real reason is for an invasion or a decapitation or something like that. At least Trump didn't do that. He didn't mention democracy at all during his press conference. He mentioned oil 25 times.
Yeah, you're exactly.
Well, it would be funny for American government to mention democracy, the one thing they don't follow. I mean, they don't believe in the rule of law. They just use this to apply to other countries that they bully. Anyway, what do I know?
Exactly right, Ali, and thanks for having me on. Happy New Year, though it feels weird as usual at the beginning of any year that Trump is in office. I would say that, those of us who are old enough, you and I, to remember the Iraq War in 2003, people like myself who claimed that Bush and Cheney went into Iraq for oil, we were dismissed as conspiracy theorists. They said it was no, WMDs, Al-Qaeda, democracy. Trump isn't doing that. People who claim this isn't about oil just need to listen to Donald Trump speaking. Well,
Yeah, people actually think this has nothing to do with oil. This has a lot to do with a dictator who's in office and who is changing the will of the people.
Hegseth speaking, they're all being or Stephen Miller, they're all being very open about this, that it is about oil. Donald Trump has been obsessed with Venezuela's oil for a decade now, as I outlined in a piece for Zateo yesterday. Andy McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI, wrote a memoir in 2019 where he said Trump had said at the time in his first term, why aren't we invading Venezuela? They're the country with all the oil. So he's been obsessed with oil in Venezuela since his first term. He hasn't.
Exactly. It's always been about the oil. It's not about Venezuela. Just like it's the same thing about the oil in Nigeria. It's not about Christians. Donald Trump doesn't care about the Christians anywhere, and most definitely not in Africa. So, guys, let's stop lying to ourselves, please.
Hidden, as you pointed out, with all those references yesterday. It's actually outrageous. This is 19th century imperial plunder to say we're going to go into another country and we're going to steal all the oil, which is a phrase he used for Iraq. He also said that it will pay for itself. And again, sorry to bring up Iraq, but Ali, you remember George
Bush. No, but this is important because this was the big selling point for Iraq, that this whole thing will pay for itself. The oil that we get out of the ground in Iraq will pay for the military action and the stabilization of Iraq.
And Paul Wolfowitz said it, Donald Rumsfeld said it, George Bush said it, Dick Cheney said it. Actually, Iraq ended up costing the American taxpayer between $2 and $3 trillion. Experts on Venezuela say just rebuilding the oil industry there will cost between 50 and 60 billion. It's going to take several years. But
America is willing to take that risk. Really? He loves Venezuela that much?
Trump is claiming it's our oil, which is so outrageous, and every American should be outraged by that. By the way, you mentioned drugs. This is talk.
Imagine saying it's our oil. You guys are just, you were born in Venezuela, but it's our oil. Like, hello.
About drugs for a moment. He's being charged in New York for cocaine trafficking. No mention of fentanyl. In the indictment, which we were told was the big reason to blow up boats in the Caribbean. It's cocaine now. And here's the problem for Donald Trump here.
So now it's not fentanyl, it's cocaine. When will the world learn? When will people actually realize that America has been doing this to a lot of nations over and over and over? And kudos to the people that are actually so demonstrating and saying they as Americans, in this statement, they as Americans have their own issues and they don't need to basically take over another country. There's no point. I mean, hello.
Which is he just pardoned the former president of Honduras, who wasn't just indicted for cocaine trafficking, he was convicted in American court, sentenced to 45 years. Imprisoned for 45 years. And Donald Trump just a few months ago pardoned the former president of Honduras, who trafficked 400 tons of cocaine into the U.S.
So he literally had somebody that had actually committed a crime, and he pardoned this person. He literally pardoned a criminal. A criminal. Like, this is something that can be confirmed, but then what? Pardons. Okay, go on before I lose my head.
So this idea that it's about cocaine is also absurd. And I would also point out, for those of you who haven't read the indictment, Nicolás Maduro is also being charged with machine gun possession, which I find...
Machine gun possession? So basically he's charging him with anything that would stick and anything that people would actually buy. So basically it's the same trick in the book where you dehumanize a person so that people wouldn't feel sorry for them. Okay, you know, at this point he might as well charge him with human trafficking, because what else is left?
Hilarious from a Republican administration that is obsessed with allowing weapons of war on our streets. Apparently you can't have guns, you have to have guns in America, but a foreign leader has to abide by some 1934 American...
Yes, a foreign leader wants to be judged by the American government that literally has a gun problem in their society. But hey,
American Firearms Act, bizarre.
So I want to put up a chart that you had a version of talking about how much oil Venezuela has. It's actually got the world's largest reserves of oil.
Yeah, so basically that is Venezuela and Saudi Arabia following next, then there's Iran, there's Iraq, and here comes the USA, right? So just what was this gonna change? Well, the global view is that this is the global view. It's not just about the US. Venezuela is not about the US. Venezuela has a major relationship with countries like China and Russia.
and Xi Jinping and others say, well, you know what, the US can do it, we can do it. If
No, anything I eat is disgusting.